Hey guys, how's it going on? And today we're going to be doing our Premier League prediction. Didn't do one of these last year, and considering that I talk a lot about football, it makes sense, and we can go back in 12 months and realise just how poor of a shout I've got. So hopefully this is going to be enjoyable, and I hopefully get some right. Let's dive into it. So starting off with number 20, finishing 20th, I'm going to have Luton Town. Some might question this because a lot of people seem to think that Luton will have the romance type thing and stay up, or they'll have like the Blackpool season when Blackpool were in the Prem, where Blackpool went down but they're also really fun to watch. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that their squad stinks and that they're going to get exposed quite a lot, and I don't necessarily think that, like I say, the team I'm going to have above them are going to do much better, but I do think that Luton are going to finish bottom. Might upset some fans that I'm not really inspired, I'm not really buying into the fairy tale story. I'd love for it to happen, I just don't think it will happen. In at 19th, we've got Sheffield United. They have literally just lost Iliman and Dye. I was so excited to watch this guy in the Premier League. He ripped it up in the Championship, but he's gone off to Marseille. And I can't really blame him. I mean, Marseille is a really interesting side to actually go and play for, but they need to reinvest, and I just don't think they will. I think Sheffield United are going to really struggle this year, and I think 19th, they could be 20th. I see a lot of people putting them 20th in their predictions, but I think that they just don't have enough. They've lost the main player, and yeah, I mean, 19th, maybe 20th, I'm not too sure. I think with Luton and Sheffield United, you could probably switch them around. 18th, I don't even have to move anything. Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think that they have had a really poor summer. Obviously losing Ruben Neves. I believe Matinho has left as well. Raul Jimenez has left. There's murmurs of Lopetegui leaving, and I think if Lopetegui leaves, they're up shit creek, to be honest with you. I think it's like, I really, really rate Lopetegui as a manager, but it's clear to see that there are a lot of financial restraints at the club. I've seen it as of recently that they were pole position to get Alex Scott, and then it's just randomly turned out that they're just not getting him anymore. I would think, to be honest with you, Alex Scott would be a really good pickup for Wolves, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to have enough this season. I think, like I say, they've had a poor summer. They've let some players go that I think usually you wouldn't really like them to leave. Ruben Neves has just been an insane player for so many years for Wolves, and I think that losing him and what leadership skills he probably brings to the dressing room is going to be monumental for them. Hope they stay up, because like I said, I don't mind Wolves in the Premier League, but I just don't think that it's going to be a possibility for them. So we've got Sean Dyche's Everton. Everton are a interesting little side, to be honest with you. A side I think should do a lot better than what they are, but the last 2 years they've flirted aggressively, it's fair to say, with relegation, and I think they're going to be doing it again this year. There is obviously the ongoing case where I don't know how true this is, but they might be getting a points deduction for breaching FFP rules. We'll have to see on that, but I think again, they're being linked with some players like Che Adams and stuff, but I just don't really think that's gonna really help them. I think they really need to try everything possible to keep Calvert-Lewin fit this season. Obviously, I was quite interested that they sold Ellis Sims. I do think Ellis Sims is an interesting little player for them, and I'm not too sure if he has gone or not. But obviously, a lot of noise has been made about Tom Cannon. I'm interested whether. He obviously did really well for Preston last year on loan in the second half of the season, so I'm interested if he's going to be staying at the club or going out. But in pre-season, he seems to be playing Lewis Dobbin a lot, so maybe Dobbin gets a bit of a shout. But yeah, I think they'll be down there. I think with how bad the bottom three are going to do this year, I don't quite think it. I think Everton might have a bit of breathing space between them and Wolves, but I think they'll do just enough. Sean Dyche, he knows what he's doing in those. Down there. He did it a lot with Burnley, where he just knows how to grind a result out. And yeah, I mean, will change come with Everton? I'm not too sure. I mean, I know the season after next they're moving into their new stadium, so I'm interested how whether that one maybe gives them a lift. But it might not. It might do the opposite. We don't know. Finishing 16th is Burnley. And I think Burnley would actually take this. I've seen some people put Burnley ridiculously high in the Premier League, saying that they're going to be hunting down Conference League. No. I don't think that's going to happen. I think a lot of people don't realise they've got a lot of new players, and a lot of the players that they signed in the Championship who did really well haven't got experience in the Premier League, and it's such a tough league to adapt to. I do think they'll stay up. I really like Vincent Kompany, and I genuinely want him to stay in the Premier League. I don't have anything against him. But 16th, not 8th, not 9th, 16th. Steady Eddies this season. I don't think, despite putting them 16th, I don't think they're going to be too near to Wolves. I think with quite a few games remaining, they'll probably secure their survival. So, finishing 15th, we've got Nottingham Forest. We saw last year that Nottingham Forest managed to get some very interesting players, to be honest with you, that I actually quite liked. They obviously have got Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson, who are two players who are really, really good talents. Obviously, as well, they've just added Anthony Elanga. So for me, it's like a free behind the striker. Going to be really, really good to watch. And I think that, to be honest with you, probably going to again get some new. They're probably going to be pretty fun to watch. Need to sort the keeper situation. There seems to be dilly-dallying between whether they want Dean Henderson, Matt Turner, or I've seen someone else linked to another keeper. But yeah, they need to sort the keeper situation out and find out who they want. I would personally say Dean Henderson. I'm not too sure at the idea of him going for Matt Turner. I don't really think Matt Turner's that good of a keeper. But yeah, I think Forest will be fine this year. It seems as if they are keeping Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson, so there isn't too much to worry about in terms of that. They just need to make sure, like I say, that they do replace, they do get a first team keeper signed up and ready for the first game of the season against Arsenal. And yeah, like I say, I'd like it to be Dean Henderson, because I sort of want Dean Henderson to have a decent season, to be then knocking on the door for England. So in 14th, I've got Bournemouth. Some people may question this. I've seen a lot of people saying that they reckon that Bournemouth will have second season syndrome. I'm not one of them. I think that Bournemouth have done very well this summer. They're clearly targeting young, exciting players, and I think that's what you've got to do. One player that I'm really excited to watch next year is Milos Kerkez, the left back they have signed from AZ Alkmaar. Looks a very, very solid prospect for them. I reckon he should be really good. I'm seeing them linked with Castrovilli from Fiorentina. If they can get Castrovilli, that would be an amazing number 8 for them. A really good ball passer who will be able just to give Bournemouth someone who can just dictate the tempo. And I believe they will end up with Alex Scott from Bristol City, who had a really good breakout year in the Championship last year, and I think would do really well for Bournemouth. Like I say, I think that Bournemouth are one of these sides where once they're settled, they'll do a few seasons in the Premier League and then they'll go down. I don't really expect them to be down near the bottom this year. I think there's too many sides down there that obviously I know I put them 14th, but I just think the teams below them, probably not Forest. Forest will probably be a similar level, but I think Burnley below, Forest below, they're just gonna, they're gonna be worse quality than Bournemouth. And I think as well with Bournemouth having new ownership, they're going to splash the cash if they're struggling in January. I do think it was a bit of a weird one to get rid of O'Neill, but maybe there was something in that. The new manager is, from what I'm told, highly rated. I don't really watch too much La Liga football, so I'm not too sure of how good he is going to be. But looking at the signings, in terms of an FM perspective, they do it really well. And obviously in real life, they're all highly thought of. And I think that will continue in this one. Next up, we have 13th. We've got Fulham, another side who I think this year will pretty much just be a bog standard mid-table side. I really think that obviously there is the issue of losing Manuel Solomon from the loan. Obviously he's gone to Spurs now, but I think Fulham, like I say, will be fine this year. I think watching them last year, they were a really solid team. They didn't really struggle too much. They maybe took their foot off the gas a little bit when they secured themselves their Premier League status, but I don't think they're going to be struggling. I think that a lot of the players that you look at, they're very solid players. They know their job. And obviously, Palhinha looks like he's staying. If Palhinha stays, that's a big one for them. He's an industrial midfielder that really, is someone who I think that really helps Fulham tick. I thought Bernd Leno had a really solid year last year in goal, and it's a tough one to understand. It's a tough one whether Mitrovic is going to leave or not. This prediction of 13th is including Mitrovic staying, so whether or not they might dip a little bit lower, I'm not too sure. But they have signed Raul Jimenez, who hasn't really been the same since coming back from his long-term injury. But he is a very solid Premier League striker. He's going to give you some goals. I think Harry Wilson has looked very good in pre-season, so I think that Wilson is going to be able to give a little bit of that quality from the right flank, cutting in and doing that left-footed bending shot to the far corner. So I think Fulham, like I say, they'll be fine. I don't think they're going to rip any trees up, but I don't think they're really going to be threatened with relegation. And I think a lot of Fulham fans would probably take that. So coming up next, we have Crystal Palace. I think that Crystal Palace, to be honest with you, are going to be fine under Roy Hodgson. I think Hodgson understands what the players need, what the players need to be told. Watching them last season, the second half of last season, it's clear to see that Hodgson has got them playing with quite a lot of confidence. And they have actually just signed someone as well who I think is going to be really good for them from the Brazilian League. I'll have to put up here his name because I can't quite remember it. But I know from Football Manager he does turn into a world beater. And I think it's interesting to see that Palace have taken similar route to Bournemouth and Brighton and Brentford in signing players who are very young, who have a lot of potential but have the stats in the right areas of how they want to play. I think Eze is going to have a really good year this year. I'm hoping he can stay fit because he is someone who I'd be very interested with taking on the plane to Germany for the Euros next year. But yeah, I think Palace is like your standard 12th. I think that Palace fans take it. I think that a lot of people predict them to finish in and around 11th, 12th, 13th because they'll just be steady. I think under Hodgson they are going to be fine, but it's going to be interesting how they do after Hodgson. It seems like they want to go down the progressive route, so they'll probably be searching for a progressive manager. Let's get on to the next team. So next is West Ham United. Now this is an interesting one because I predicted this having thought they would have made more signings by now. They haven't. And they've just lost Scamacca as well. So they've lost Rice and Scamacca in this transfer window. I think Scamacca is an interesting one. It just doesn't really seem like he worked out for him. So I'm interested who they go for. The one that I've been seeing quite a lot of is Balogun at Arsenal. And I also see him wanting Lille's Canadian striker, Jonathan David. I think both of those would be very reasonable strikers for them to get. I don't quite think that they'll be fine with Danny Ings up front. I just don't think Danny Ings is the same striker that he was when he was at Southampton. So I think they need a striker for sure. Obviously, they need the Rice replacement. I'm seeing links with Edson Alvarez at Ajax and Denis Zakaria, who I believe is at Juventus. Been a while. I think either of those two would be pretty good. I think for me, I'd probably get two. I'd probably get Alvarez and Zakaria because I think they'll need that. They need the energy because Rice did quite a few jobs, to be honest with you, in that midfield. And I think replacing him isn't just a case of getting one player. I do think as well a left back could be pretty good for them as well. Creswell is getting on a bit. Really good player to have as a squad depth option, obviously with them playing in the Europa League this year. But I do think that they are a team who maybe need one or two acquisitions to really back my point of them finish 11th. But I do back them. I really rate Moyes as a manager, and I'm really happy in recent years that he's managed to turn it around. Obviously, for quite some time, a lot of people seem to have had him as a bit of a meme. But yeah, no, not for me. I really like David Moyes. So yeah, 11th. West Ham fans, would you take that? I think you would. So next, 10th, we have got Brentford. Now, people might be questioning this. Obviously, Ivan Toney is banned for quite a number of games. And some people might be wondering whether he's going to do as good on, they're going to do that good without him. But I think they are. I think Thomas Frank plays to a playing style where it doesn't rely on certain players. I think it's the system and the positions in which that the players play which makes the tactics of Thomas Frank so effective. I think Mbeumo and Visser will do very well up front without him, and then Toney comes back in and probably storms it and then probably leaves next summer. I think that's pretty much something that I can believe. I'm interested to see whether Lewis Potter gets a little bit more game time this year. Obviously joined from Hull City for a decent whack of money, to be honest with you. And didn't really do too much last year. I've watched him in pre-season a little bit. Does seem like he's doing alright for himself, and I'd be interested to see. And I believe that this sign, I'll have to put an asterisk on it, but Kevin Schade from the young German striker / winger, looked bright last year. I don't know if it did, because I know it's a loan with an option to buy, but I don't know if they did it or not. I should have think they should, because Kevin Schade was really good last year and could be a player to look out for. But I really like Brentford, to be honest with you. I really like Thomas Frank, and yeah, I think 10th they would take. And yeah, Brentford fans, would you take that yourselves? Obviously with the Toney ban, or do you think that you might be finishing slightly lower? I feel like, to be honest with you, so far in my prediction, the only one that I think that some people say that I've put quite high is probably West Ham, given that their transfer business hasn't been that much. But we shall see on that one. We have Spurs now. I feel like a lot of Spurs fans might kick off at me at this one, but I just don't think that Ange is going to be able to mould this team straight away. And I don't think that I think they're going to finish 9th. I think Harry Kane leaves, and I think that Daniel Levy is just going to give Ange peanuts to replace him. Although he's probably even going to say, you've got Richarlison, use Richarlison, who I don't think is necessarily that bad of a player, but I just don't think that he's on Kane's level. And I think that could really disrupt it. I think as well, going from Conte to Ange is just a massive culture shift. At Celtic, Ange played a very, very different system, mostly playing a 4-3-3. And I think that a lot of the players at that squad need I think a lot of players need gutting and then replacing, because I don't quite think they have the some of the right players. I think Maddison will thrive under them. I think I do back Maddison to have a good season along with Dejan Kulusevski. Really do rate Kulusevski. And potentially Manuel Solomon from the bench could do pretty well. But that was there to be seen. Seen today that it looks like they're going to be getting Wolfsburg's Dutch centre-back, Mickey van der Ven. Obviously, by the time this video goes up, he might have signed, but could be an interesting signing, but a lot of unproven players. But they could finish a lot higher. It's just I'm a little bit unsure, and I think as well, if Kane leaves, it could be alarm bells for Tottenham in terms of how much they might drop down the league. But Spurs fans, I'm happy for you to disagree with me, and hope for your sake you might be better, but who really knows these days. So finishing in 8th, I've got Brighton. I think that they'll have a good season, but I think that European fatigue is going to set in, and I think that we could potentially see a little bit of a fall off, but I really like some of the signs they're making. Igor from Fiorentina, Mahmoud Dahoud from Dortmund, and João Pedro from Watford. All very solid signings that I think De Zerbi has clearly targeted to fit the system. And I have actually seen them linked with Kudus, so it's going to be interesting if they manage to get Kudus. I've seen quite a lot of things saying that they've agreed a fee, but Kudus doesn't want to move to Brighton, which I think is quite weird, really, considering Brighton are like one of the strongest sides. I think, if I was Kudus, I'd back joining Brighton, put a release clause in my contract, and then do a year or two in the Prem, and then get a bigger move. Seems silly, but the move might happen, and I hope it does, because I think Kudus at Brighton would be unreal. But I think, like I say, just a little bit of a drop off from last year, just with the fact of them having to travel all the way around Europe. That fatigue of playing twice a week is really going to probably set in for Brighton. But I think 8th still. I think a lot of Brighton fans would probably still take that. Finishing 7th, I've got Mauricio Pochettino's Chelsea. Now, I feel like a lot of Chelsea fans might absolutely come for me in the comment section and say, I do not know football, but I just don't think that you can have that massive amount of squad turnover and it clicks just like that. I think it's going to take time for Chelsea, and I really think that Chelsea fans have got to stay patient with it, because I think that Pochettino will build something, but it's not going to happen overnight. I can see Chelsea probably winning one of either the League Cup or the FA Cup, and that probably being a sweetener of the season. But I don't think that they're pretty much for me for Chelsea. I could see them fit like the 3 in this pocket that I've got. And I'm not going to reveal the 2 above, but I think the 3 from 5th to 7th, either of these sides you could swap round, because I think it's going to be close between them. Next up, we've got 6th. We've got Unai Emery's Aston Villa. I backed them to be really good this year. I think that watching pre-season, Moussa Diaby looks really good. It looks a very strong acquisition for them. Ollie Watkins is firing in pre-season. If they can keep him fit, I think that is really going to be a solid option for them. And then at the back, they've signed Pau Torres, and Diego Carlos is also back from his long-term injury. So you've got a lot of option at the back, and they're going to be. I think Emery adds a lot, and I think he really, we saw under him at Villarreal. He really gets, when he gets the patience, and fans don't really go on him as much. He really gets them cooking quite a lot. I do actually back Aston Villa to win the Conference League this year. I think that Emery is going to get them playing really well, and I'm really excited to see Villa this year, because I think they could be really cool. The only other thing I'll mention with Aston Villa is I'm not really too sure why they've changed the badge, but they've got a circle badge now. I didn't know that. Next up, we've got Newcastle United, another similar one, which I'm going to say to Brighton. I think they're going to have a good season, but I think playing in the Champions League for Newcastle is going to really drain those players' legs. They've acquired well in the summer. Harvey Barnes, Tino Livramento, and Sandro Tonali have all been really good acquisitions for them. I do suspect they will probably, at the time of recording this, probably bring a few more in. But I do back that they're probably going to do alright in the Champions League. I do back them to actually get into the knockout stages. But I think, like I say, that Newcastle would just about miss out on Champions League. But, it'll be 5th place, which will be, Europa League. And I think a lot of Newcastle fans would probably take that. Running the Champions League, perhaps they're running the League Cup or the FA Cup and maybe winning one of them. I think if you're Newcastle, you probably take that. So finishing 4th, I've got Arsenal. And I know I'm going to get some shit in the comment section for this from Arsenal fans. But I just think last year, it was Arsenal's time. So many teams had an off-season last year that I just think that was the time. I think this year, it's going to be where a lot of the sides who had off seasons last year are really going to have a resurgence this year, and I think that the top 4 race this year is going to be very, very close. Pretty much for me, from like you could even argue from like Chelsea up, it's going to be very tight for Europe. I do like the signings that Arteta has made in Timber. Less so about Havertz. I'm a bit confused over Havertz, and obviously Declan Rice is a good signing. To be honest with you, it's nice seeing that a really good English player not going to Man City. I want Arsenal to do well, and I want people to know that you might give me shite in the comment section saying I don't know anything about football. I would want Arsenal out of all the teams in the Prem, Liverpool and Arsenal are the 2 that I would want to win the league. I think both of those are really good teams, but Arsenal 4th. I don't think it's going to quite click. Obviously, the fact that what Arsenal fans have to remember as well, you're playing Champions League football this year, and that can take it out, it seems. Obviously, the later stage of the Champions League coming up against higher opposition, the more Arteta gets through it, is he going to prioritise that? It should be very interesting. I am interested at the minute, by the way, about David Raya being linked. I'm not too sure on that one. Unless Matt Turner leaves and Raya comes in as number 2, with maybe the promise of playing, heavy rotation between Ramsdale and Raya. But Arsenal fans, what's your thoughts on that one? Obviously, as well, I'm interested as well whether Balogun leaves or not, or does does Nketiah potentially, stay as like in the fold. I'm not too sure. Let's move on. Manchester United, I think that Ten Hag is gonna progress the side again this year, and I think that they will retain their third place finish. To be honest with you, as much as it pains me as a Bolton fan to say this, but I quite like the business they've done this year. Rasmus Højlund joining from Atalanta. Obviously he's a young striker but has a lot of potential. Onana joining from Inter Milan as the new number one. Onana, for me, having watched quite a lot of Serie A and when he played for Ajax as well, he's a very stellar keeper, and I think that the one thing which I like about Onana is he's a talker. Watch the games and he's he's always barking at his defence, and that's what you want. I think another thing that is good for Manchester United is Onana is a very capable ball-playing goalkeeper. He's going to be able to he's really going to be able to set up a lot better, and play the way that Ten Hag wants. Obviously, could be wrong in saying this, but I believe that Ten Hag did manage Onana when Ten Hag was at Ajax. But yeah, I think that United will be doing pretty well this year. Like I say, a lot of their signings I'm quite a big fan on. I do think they need a midfielder. Obviously, I know they signed Mason Mount, but he's obviously a bit more progressive, more attacking midfielder. I think they need more of a defensive one. I have seen that they are linked with Amrabat, who had, obviously, as a lot of people know, quite a good World Cup. So that could be an interesting signing as a bit of a backup, give Casemiro a bit of a rest. But yeah, it's there to be seen on that one. But yeah, I think United fans, would you take third? So finishing second, I have got Liverpool, and I think that quite a lot of people are probably going to suggest that I should have had Arsenal second, Liverpool fourth. But I think that Klopp is going to pretty much get Liverpool firing again this year. Obviously, we saw towards the end of last season, he started to play Trent as in an inverted role. I feel as if he'll probably keep him in that role this year because he looked really solid in that role. Obviously, Liverpool have added the likes of Dominic Szoboszlai and Alexis McAllister. I do think they need additional ones, acquisitions, but it can't be disputed the quality of what they're getting in. Dominic Szoboszlai is an incredible talent, and someone who really likes to get involved with the game. We saw, I've watched quite a lot of him at Leipzig and in his games at Hungary, especially for Hungary. He's the main man, and he always steps up, and that shows that in times where Liverpool needs someone to step up, Szoboszlai is definitely going to do that for them. And I think that perhaps they put Liverpool too high, and they might finish fourth, and Arsenal might finish second. But I really think between Liverpool, United, and Arsenal, and obviously, as you might have guessed, Man City, who are top, it's going to be a lot closer this year. I don't think there's going to be someone who just runs away with the title this year. I think it's going to be very tight this year. But boringly, I think Pep does it again. I think Man City win the title, and I think that it will come about from the fact that I think that Man City are just so good at grinding out results, and I think that it's a position where I think that maybe they've sold quite a lot of players, and it might cause them a little bit of time to readjust. But today they've got Gvardiol in. And I think Gvardiol is an insane centre-back, and it's like, I just look at myself and think, you think John Stones in that inverted role, Nathan Ake, left centre-back, who had that insane season, you've got Gvardiol, who can play left centre-back, Ruben Diaz, Laporte. You just look at all these players that they've got, and you think, Jesus Christ, relentless. Obviously, they've lost Ilkay Gundogan, which is an interesting one, because, Gundogan is a really good player. And I think Mateo Kovacic is a great player, but I don't really know whether he's on the same level as Ilkay Gundogan. I think Foden will have a much better year this year. Obviously, he had a lot of his time out last year with injuries, but I do back him to do quite well. And I think Grealish as well will have another really good year. And perhaps as well, one that might be a surprise, but Calvin Phillips, I do back him this year. I think he would have learnt the system a lot more. And it'll be a bit more like Grealish. How Grealish first season wasn't brilliant, but his second season is. But that concludes I think everyone's going to finish. Am I going to get any right? I mean, I got one right last year, so doesn't really track that. But I've tried to break down my thinking for everything. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. at the end of the day, football is such a hard thing to predict. The Premier League's even harder to predict because it's just so many teams just have off seasons when you don't think they are. But to me, I think that it could be quite a solid one, to be honest with you. Let me know your predictions in the comment section, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion in the comment section about everyone's tables. As per usual, I hope you all have a brilliant day.